Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Almost There, a Twisted Tale novel here on Disney Magic Zach. Episode 38, Chapter 37. Let's go. An excited buzz hummed through Tiana's entire body as her boat's bow cut through the murky swamp water, fevered anticipation building up in her bloodstream. They were close. She could feel it. She spotted a weirdly shaped cypress tree a few minutes earlier and instantly recognized it as one she'd seen the last time she was here. Mama Odie's house would appear soon. Just a few more minutes and they would see it. She paddled with renewed vigour now that they were so close to their destination. Yet, despite her excitement, Tiana could not fend off the trepidation that tingled at the back of her neck at the thought of approaching Mama Odie for help once again. She was intimidated by the quirky voodoo lady who taught him riddles and kept a snake as a pet. The one who always seemed to know exactly what she was thinking. But she has a good heart. The reminder assuaged a bit of her worry. Mama Odie had been willing to help both Tiana and Naveen the year before. Hopefully, she'll be willing to do so again. Please, please, please. The strangeness of having to rely on someone else for help struck Tiana anew. She knew she was independent to a fault. She had lost count of how many times she had wasted hours, sometimes even days, toiling away at some task or another, refusing to ask for help. But Tiana would not pretend that she could get out of this mess with Faciliate on her own. I don't think my arms can take much more of this, Charlotte cried. Just a little further, Lottie, Tiana said. Are you sure? Charlotte asked. I am. I promise. It should be right. She started, but Naveen cut her off. There it is. Tiana's eye grew wide as the boat broke through a curtain of moss that hung like a delicate lace from the spindly branches of two trees. There, in the middle of the swamp, grew the biggest tree Tiana had ever seen. Hundreds of steps were carved into its massive trunk. They wound their way up to the rickety fishing boat that sat nestled between a cluster of gnarly branches. Yes, Tiana said. Took all she had not to cry tears of joy. That's not a house, Charlotte said. That's a shipwreck. Looks like as it was blown there by a hurricane. Tiana wouldn't have been surprised if that was exactly how Mama Odie had come to reside in that tree. There's a lot more to that little boat that meets the eye, she told Charlotte. Everything is going to be okay now. Just watch. Mama Odie will know what to do about the Shadow Man. They paddled up to the humongous cypress. China lifted the heavy rope from the boat and tossed it over a chunky tree stump near the base of the tree. Once she secured their boat, she plunked her hands on her hips and released a deep, satisfied breath. Well, we made it, she said. A sense of foreboding sneaked its way into her head, but she tamped it down. There was no reason for her to be afraid. She gingerly climbed out of the boat, doing her best to find purchase on the tree's lumpy roots that protruded from the water. Is that safe? Charlotte asked. Of course it is. She reached out her hand to help Charlotte. Come on. Her foot slipped, and she had to fight to keep her balance. I think I'm going to stay on the boat, Charlotte said. A moment later, a huge bug zigzagged around her head. She yelped and scrambled out of the boat. On the other hand, maybe I should join you. Ah, this brings back memories, Lewis said as he hefted his huge body off the starboard side. Yes, it does, Naveen said, climbing out after Lewis. Once out of the boat, he stood with his fist perched on his hips and looked around. Why does it bring back memories? Oh, well, you know, China hedged as she started up the steps. You're probably remembering some other house in the swamp that you visited. Once you visited one swamp house, you visited them all. But I've never... We'd better get up there, Tiana interrupted. The carved steps squeaked loudly in the quiet bayou. So loudly, Tiana wondered if it wasn't by design. It was an ingenious way to alert whoever was in the house that someone was on their way up the steps. You're going too fast, Tia, Charlotte called. Yeah, I'm going to take it slow, Lewis puffed. China looked back to make sure both were okay and continued up the steps. She was ready to make her case to Mama Odie and hopefully gain the old lady's help. Despite her excitement, she slowed as she approached the door to the boathouse. The rusty hinges looked as if they were ready to fall off. Who's there? An unfamiliar voice called from the other side of the door. Tiana jumped. Mama Odie? The door opened a few inches and so slither of a face appeared through the slit. I said, who's there? It was opened a little bit more. Tiana couldn't make out any of the features, not with the way the person stood in the shadow of the doorway. But she could tell by the shape that this was not Mama Odie. Could they be at the wrong house? No, this was definitely the house. Weren't any other old fishing boats sitting in big cypress trees around these parts? I came to see Mama Odie, Tiana said. The door opened a bit wider and a younger woman walked out in the dim sunlight. Her golden brown skin was several shades lighter than Tiana's, and she had a red and black checkered kerchief tied around her head. Her eyes were a colour Tiana had never seen before, a mixture of green and hazel and grey. She was strikingly pretty. She's not here, the young woman said. It felt as if someone had struck Tiana directly in the chest. She shook her head, unwilling to let the words sink in. There was no way she had gone through all this trouble, only for Mama Odie to not be there. What do you mean she's not here? Tiana asked. She has to be here. This is her home. I know this is her home, the girl said, but she's not here. Auntie Odie is in New Iberia, visiting her sister, my mama, Clarie. No, Tiana whispered. This was one thing she had not considered. She took a step back, as if she could physically distance herself from the bad news. If not for Naveen catching her by the arm, she would have fallen off the steep wooden step. What happened to you? The girl at the door asked, jutting her chin towards Naveen's hands. Ah, I came out on the losing end of a fight with an angry tree branch, he said. He cut it on a log while trying to dislodge our boat from some brambles, Tiana murmured, her mind still reeling. It don't look good, the girl said. The way it's puffed up like that means infection is setting in. She looked them both up and down, her face a mask of distrust. But then she backed into the house and held the door open. Come on in. Both Tiana and Naveen remained outside. Oh, come on, the girl said. You need to get some salve on that hand before you lose it. I'll whip up something. She tilted her head, indicating that they were to follow her. Once they were alone, Tiana looked to Naveen. What do you think? She whispered. I am a bit frightened, he admitted. Well, my hand, it hurts like... What was that you said? The Dickens? Tiana sighed. I guess we should go in. You need to let her see about it. She can't do any more damage. The moment they entered the house, Naveen's footsteps halted. He stood just past the entryway, his eyes taking in every nook and cranny of this room. I've been here before, he said. Tiana frowned. She wasn't sure what was happening. Naveen wasn't supposed to have any recollection of anything that happened during their time as frogs. But ever since they had taken off on the bayou, Tiana could tell that memories were beginning to return. She released a nervous laugh. Don't be ridiculous. No, I have, Naveen insisted. I don't know when, but I've been here. He rubbed his chin with his fingers. There was a snake. It was a peculiar snake. He put a head to his hand. It makes no sense, but I know it is true. Just then, the girl returned. She had several colourful glass jars and bottles against her chest. Come on in the kitchen, she said. I'm Lisette, by the way. She threw her over her shoulder. I'm Tiana, and this here is Naveen. My friends Lottie and Lou are still making their way up the staircase. Navigating those stairs takes a little getting used to, Lisette said. Tiana followed her into the room where she helped Mama Odie whip up a pot of gumbo the last time she had been in this house. She held her breath, waiting for Naveen to mention how familiar this room was too, but it was uncharacteristically quiet. There was a large mortar and pestle sitting on the table. The bowl's smooth interior was scored with marks, likely from years of use. So what is it you folks want with Auntie Odie? Lisette asked. If you need her to put a spell on someone, I'll tell you now that she don't use her knowledge for stuff like that. No, that's not it at all, Tiana said. I've been here before, and Mama Odie lent her assistance. I was hoping she'd be willing to do it again. You see, I've got myself into a bit of a situation. She wondered how much she should divulge, or what was there more to lose. Tiana leant a little closer and said, I got involved with a voodoo man back in New Orleans. Lisette's eyes lit up. Oh, y'all came from New Orleans. I love it there. Tiana thought for a moment. This young woman was related to Mama Odie. We really could use some help. But since Mama Odie isn't here, maybe you. I can't do what Auntie Odie do, the young woman said simply. That's not my gift. But... Hey, Mama Odie! Lewis's overexcited voice interrupted her. He lumbered inside, Charlotte trailing behind him, out of breath. You're not Mama Odie, he said, looking at Tiana, but hooking a thumb towards Lisette. Who's this? Mama Odie is visiting family out of town, Tiana explained. She couldn't stop her shoulders from wilting with disappointment. She wondered if she could wait for the older woman's return. Charlotte swooped gracefully into a wicker chair as Tiana moved closer to the table. Watching Lisette add several leaves and berries to the mortar, Tiana was struck by the girl's efficiency and how competent she appeared as she measured each ingredient. Her baby soft skin made her look so young. She couldn't have been more than 15 years old. She uncorked a slim bottle, not unlike those Tiana had spotted in Facilier's workshop. The moment the cork was out, a putrid smell rose from the container. Faldi Faldoza, Naveen said, waving his uninjured hand in front of his nose. It's a valerian root, Lisette said. It has a foul odour, but it'll soothe the sting while the ribwort fights the infection. She sprinkled several of the fragrant leaves into the mortar, then used a pestle to grind it all into a dark green paste. If you don't mind my asking, how'd you learn to do this? Tiana asked. My mama taught me, Lisette said. She's an herbalist, too. I'm still an apprentice, but there's nothing complicated about making a salve to stop infection. Your mama and Mama Odie are sisters? Auntie Odie is my mama's older sister. I come to take care of Auntie's house once she visits Mama. She left a few days ago, but she'll be back in about a month's time. A month? Tiana said. That's way too long. She studied Lisette's face. Are you sure you don't have any of Mama Odie's special powers? Lisette rolled her eyes. They're not special powers, she lamented. Do you know anything about voodoo? Not really, Tiana said. I just know that the Shadow Money is causing some awful things to happen around the city with it. And I know that Mama Odie used her gifts to help me last year. I don't know what this Shadow Money is all about. It sounds to me like whatever he's involved in, it's a lot different from what Auntie Odie and the rest of my family practices. We call on the Lua, the spirits of our ancestors that offer healing and protection from harm. It's used for good, not for evil. That's exactly what I need, Tiana said. Unless you can make it to New Iberia to fetch Auntie Odie, you'll have to wait. And even if you went there to fetch her, I don't think she would come back here until she's done with her visit. She still treats Mama like a little girl, spoiling her rotten. Lisette stuck her fingers in the concoction she made and rubbed the paste between her thumb and forefinger. She brought it to her nose and sniffed, not reacting at all to the pungent aroma. I think this will do. Send your boyfriend over here, she said to Tiana. He's not my boyfriend, Tiana stammered, her face growing hot. The young girl's brow arched in a way that told Tiana she was not fooling her one bit. Lisette took Naveen's injured hand in her own and slathered a thick layer of the grainy salve all over it. Naveen pinched his face, but as more as the salve went on, his expression turned from one of concern to relief. Feel better? Tiana asked him. Yes, it does, he said, a bit of wonder in his voice. It does. I was grateful when I was getting out of that boat, Charlotte said. There's a chance I could get some of that smelly green stuff too. As soon as I'm done with this one here, I'll take care of yours, Lisette said. She lifted a square of cloth from the table and ripped it down the middle, and tore it several more times until there were 6 narrow strips of fabric. She gently but efficiently wrapped 4 strips of cloth around Naveen's injured hand. Once she got to the end, she reached under the kerchief, covering her head, pulling out a hairpin, and used it to secure the dressing. Wow, Naveen said, moving his wrist back and forth as he stared at his hand. This is impressive, he said. He looked up at Lisette and smiled. I am very impressed. It is impressive, Tiana said. That's a great skill. Lisette shrugged her shoulders as if making a concoction that would save Naveen from possibly losing his hand wasn't a big deal. We all have our part to play in this world, she said. Being a herbalist is mine. She brought the mortar over to Charlotte and rubbed some of the salve on Lucy's tiny scrape. It won't take long for this one to heal. I'll jar some of this up so you can take it back with you. Take it with them? It suddenly occurred to Tiana that she would be on her way back to New Orleans without Mama Odie's help, without anyone's help. She was on her own, and it was becoming increasingly evident, in a way, over her head.